everyone. Did you miss KubeCon? Curious about what actually happened down in Atlanta? You're in the right place, don't worry. In this session, I'm going to be joined here by Dan Garfield to have basically a chat about everything that went down. Dan was down there in Atlanta, and he's going to share with us all the announcements, the trends, the takeaways that he gathered while at KubeCon North America. Obviously, minus all the hallway notes and side conversations and the hunt for coffee and food and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, in this session, we're going to walk through what's changed, what's coming, what you should pay attention to across the Kubernetes platform engineering and wider cloud native ecosystem. And if you couldn't make the trip, you're in the right space to learn everything and more about this. My name is John Bristowe. I'm the principal developer advocate here at Octopus Deploy. And joining me is the man himself, Mr. Dan Garfield, our VP of Open Source. Hi, Dan. How's it going?
So good, John. We're in post KubeCon hangover. That it's a full week sprint, kind of exhausted, but it's like this is like when you get together for waffles after the big party, you like hang out with your friends and you reminisce about the best moments.
That's right. And so I'll start off with the sort of obvious question. As an overall, what was your assessment overall of KubeCon North America this year?
So I don't want to say that there's a standard KubeCon, but I've been going to I feel like this is my 18th or 19th KubeCon that I've been to. I've been to every single one except for the very first one in San Francisco. I was like a couple blocks away at the time for some reason. But Atlanta was, we had the show floor. We had plenty of talks. There were lots of announcements, lots going on. It did feel a little bit like, we've seen some maturing in this industry. In the Kubernetes space, where if you go back 5 years ago, there were a lot more startups, maybe like a diverse set of startups trying to solve different problems in the cloud native space. A lot of those now have collapsed. You have a couple of winners who have kind of made it through that gauntlet and are cruising along. And we also saw, a lot about AI. For every project, wanted to talk about AI, and we definitely saw some AI companies there too. But there were some really fun standout moments. We had ArgoCon, of course, the day zero event, ArgoCon, and it was about the same size as ArgoCon Salt Lake, just a tiny bit smaller. We had, whatever it was, 400 people or so there. And then we, of course, for the conference of KubeCon overall, we had about 9,000 people, which is pretty much exactly what we had in Salt Lake. So not a big difference. Now, if people are tuning in from Europe and you've been to KubeCon Europe, you should know that of all the KubeCons you can go to, the one that is the biggest like party zone in terms of the highest energy level, it's always KubeCon Europe. KubeCon North America is a little bit more buttoned down,
okay,
a little bit more reserved. I think it's something about, maybe that like the people in North America are a little like, they kind of think they have it figured out a lot of the times. And in Europe, a lot of people are like, hey, I'm here to learn. And they come with an open mind. I don't know if you've had that experience, John.
I went to KubeCon Europe in Paris last year. I thought it was pretty typical for a conference, but, I don't go to more reserved conferences. I like to go to fun conferences, of course. That's me with my my snobby attitude. I've been, I've got a little bit of gray hair. I've been around the block, so I don't waste time on conferences that aren't fun. I like fun conferences, but anyways, of course, I'm speaking facetiously. I'm not speaking seriously. Please don't jump all over me. Anyways,
we did have our party. We had a fun party. We hosted a party. We had like a rooftop situation going on in Atlanta, which was very nice. And I'll share some of the news from the week. So if you're tuning in to kind of catch up, I'll give you some of those things, some of the cliff notes. Okay. And then just some observations too of the different things that were going on. But in terms of the show, the big story that was non-technical was security. Right. Security at the Atlanta conference center that we were at was very intense. And it took the first day of KubeCon about an hour to get into the conference. Now, I didn't mind it that much because it was kind of, when I go to these things, I'm really there to talk to people. And I basically hung out in line and talked to the same people I was going to talk to inside the conference anyway. So didn't really make that big of a difference. So that was all good. But a lot of people were very stressed about that and intense. And then the CNCF kind of came out and were like, hey, we're really sorry. We're going to change it all up. So the next day, no lines.
You know what I'm laughing about is I thought you were talking about like security as it relates to
physical
like
security. Physical security.
I'm the worst. Of course, the nerd in me is like, no, let's talk about supply chain, sort of thing.
Yeah,
We're talking about the actual.
We can do that too. No, the other and the other thing, just from a logistics standpoint, is that it was in the middle of the last week of the government shutdown, so tons of people were getting down from flights. There was a guy. I should pull up the tweet, but basically, I had tweeted like or X'd. It's a weird verb.
X. Yeah, I know.
But I X'd that there were. I had heard from a lot of people who were having a hard time traveling to the conference because of canceled flights or whatever. Yep. And somebody responded and said to me, we're actually driving. We're making the drive from Oklahoma. So they drove from Oklahoma to Atlanta. Logan Bowe. Here, I'll throw the tweet in the I'll throw the tweet in the private, in the studio chat.
Sure.
But he actually came and found me at the conference, and he was like, I made it. We made it. They got a group full, like a car full of people, and went and did the drive from Oklahoma to Atlanta. So there were some diehards that made this happen to get out here. So shout out to Logan and the crew. They were at the airport. They were sitting there. Their flight got canceled, and they were like, you know what? We're grabbing a car. We're driving, and they made it. So, great ingenuity from folks. A lot of resiliency showed. Fail over resiliency, if you will.
I like it. All right. Well, let's get into the event itself. Obviously, notwithstanding the security, the physical security, we have also, as part of it, if no one's ever been to KubeCon, we've got these co-located events, and you mentioned it earlier how we're basically running ArgoCon and sponsoring it as well. There's ArgoCon, which obviously is sort of a everything and anything about Argo, and then
typically the largest co-located event there. Yeah.
Okay. No, not a big deal, so
not a big deal.
That's right. And then there was Platform Engineering Day, which we also sponsored as well. So tell us a little bit about ArgoCon, because you've been heavily involved in this.
Well, I'll tell you, between the two conferences, we talked to basically exclusively Argo users at both of them.
Okay.
So all of the people at PlatformCon, they were all Argo users too. Now at ArgoCon, we made. I was asked by the project leads to give the project keynote, which is a huge honor. The Argo project was really started by Pratik, who was at Intuit, and he's moved on to work on other stuff, and so. He's kind of been nice enough to ask me to do some of those project-led updates. And so I got to do that, co-chairing the event with Katie Lampkin-Fuller from Intuit, as well as Christian Hernandez, who's now at, I want to say IBM.
Okay.
But I'm probably getting it wrong. He's going to correct me. So we'll engage with him a little bit.
Do a quick Google.
Yeah. But we had at ArgoCon, we were celebrating a ton of releases of the Argo project this year. Argo CD, we had like 97, we had almost 100 releases by the time we dealt with security patches and everything else. So tons of activity there. We were showing off new features. We were showing off new projects in Argo Project Labs. So a lot of people don't know, we have the Argo project, which is a CNCF project with maturity and governance that's all linked to CNCF standards. And then we have Argo Project Labs, which is run by the Argo maintainers. Basically, we created a space that is a carve out for people that want to build experimental projects around Argo. And we had a couple of new projects come out this year. There's an MCP server for Argo CD. So that's cool. There's an Argo CD agent, which is basically a UI plugin that gives you a chat with your Argo context, so you can talk to your applications, you can talk to your Argo instance. So that one's cool. And we were showing off the monorepo controller just a little bit, which is a cool new project from the Octopus deploy team that we've been using with our customers now for almost 2 years. But basically, it makes sure that Argo CD sync revisions always match correctly to the history, which for a lot of users may not be a big deal, but if you have especially active repositories you're working on, it's a big deal. So we were showing off that, and we had great feedback from the audience. A lot of great end user talks. Now, unfortunately, the ArgoCon talks are not available yet on YouTube. They're usually up within 24 hours. They're going to be up in the next 2 weeks. So I'm waiting to get the green light from the CNCF, because there are a lot of talks that I wanted to shout out and talk about today. So I think y'all just have to wait for that to hit and come out before we can get into all those cool talks. But yeah, that we had a lot of great end users and a lot of energy at ArgoCon. So yeah, ArgoCon was great, and tons of conversations in the hallway as always. Now it was funny because we were talking to people that obviously at ArgoCon you have a mix of people that have a ton of experience. Oh, Christian Hernandez is at Cisco. Sorry, Cisco. My bad. But you have all these companies like Adobe and other like Priceline. Priceline gave an amazing talk, by the way, maybe the best talk of ArgoCon, super popular.
Why is that?
Well, what did they were talking about how they've built their developer experience around Argo CD, and how they've enabled basically everything to live within a pull request. And by making that the interface, they've simplified, and I'll share the link with you.
Sure.
Because I've got it right here.
This is what happens when people type and talk at the same time. The productivity just plummets on both ends.
Sorry. I sent it to you. But yeah, they gave this great talk about making pull requests the experience. And Priceline is a customer Octopus deploy that we know very well. And it was really cool to see them shining and sharing their use case, and huge crowd afterwards. When they finished their talk, like half the room went outside to just keep talking to them.
Wow.
They were really interested in this developer experience focused around the pull request. Now that's something that like we've kind of pushed people on for a long time with Argo CD. There's a lot of great reasons why you want to use the pull request. But yeah, that was a great talk, and definitely the slides are up, so you can look through the slides. But the talk will be up, the recording will be up in the next 2 weeks or so. So anyway, that was a great one. But what I was observing is that we had, all of this data telling us that Argo CD is the most popular way to deploy to Kubernetes. There's a new survey coming out from the CNCF. It's in preprint, but they basically had like 93% of their respondents said they were using Argo CD. So
wow.
Just crazy. Now I'm going to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt before until I get the full report, and
Right.
can look at it, because it's pre-release, so it's not public yet. But I saw that stat and I was like, that's crazy. I mean, all of our data was telling us 50-60% of clusters were using Argo CD. So very interesting to see the CNCF survey saying that it's even more than we expected. But all of that, and then later on in KubeCon, of course, we have the Octopus deploy booth. We've got an Argo booth, and we always make sure that one of the maintainers from Octopus deploy is hanging out at the Argo booth to answer questions and meet with people and stuff. And somebody came over who works at a company that I'm not going to name them because I don't want to shame them, but they work at a company that most of you have used their product. And the person we were talking to said Argo CD seems really cool, but you guys are never going to be successful. No enterprise is ever going to deploy this or allow this deployed in production.
Okay.
And we were like, hold up. I want to correct you. I want to tell you like that you're missing something. But first I want to know where you've been.
Right.
What rock have you been living under? What cave are you hiding in? Do you not have Starlink there? Because it's so crazy. It was amazing. It was actually like really fun to kind of find somebody who wasn't, because mostly everybody that we talked to is like on the hype train. The hype train has left the station and they're on it.
So it's like finding Key Rock, Cro-Magnon man sort of thawed, sort of thing. Sorry, that's a really bad thing to say, but you get a sense, like,
Yeah,
what's been happening? So
and I think maybe
what'd
she
you
had
say?
some concerns around like the security of allowing Argo CD to connect to like your cluster and deploy stuff. We talked to this person a little bit about how that security model works, and they're like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's ever going to catch on in the enterprise. And it's like, well, I kind of got news for you. Kind of already did. So
That's right.
um,
Just as a reminder, folks, we are answering questions here. If you have any, or you have any insights you want to share, we obviously had Luther who said he's eagerly waiting for the ArgoCon video. So there you go. No pressure, Dan. Get those out, right? So, but if you have any questions or any thoughts or insights that you'd like to share with Dan, feel free to submit them. What's your sense of where Argo's at now? Like, you're obviously very close to where, you're part of obviously the contributing team. We're the number one contributor. What was the general? I hate to say it. What was the general vibe at ArgoCon / KubeCon around Argo?
Well, Argo was definitely extremely popular, and you could just see, we have a giant like Argo on our booth, and people would beeline over and be like, I'm using Argo CD. It's my favorite tool. What are you doing with Argo CD? I got to know. And as we talk to people, when you ask them, what do you think about Argo CD? They always tell you, we love it. We're so happy with it. And then you start asking questions like, okay, do you have any challenges? And like, well, maybe we're struggling to scale, or like we're trying to figure out how to build our deployment experience around it, or maybe we need support or whatever. So a lot of great conversations there. And I think that I did have somebody come over to me and say that they were evaluating right now between Argo CD and Flux. And of course, Flux we haven't heard as much from, after WeaveWorks shut down. Flux kind of went quiet for a while, but they've got some folks that are working on it and are doing regular releases, so the project isn't like dead or anything. But they came to us and they said that they were like, well, we were benchmarking like memory consumption, and we noticed that Argo CD uses a little bit more memory, and we were trying to understand that. And so this is maybe more of a technical conversation that we want to get into today. But interestingly, I think that they weren't aware of, Argo CD tracks every object in a Kubernetes cluster. So it has this big Redis cache database to streamline that. And Flux doesn't track every object. It only tracks release objects. It creates these release objects like a Helm chart, or like a Helm release, or like a customized release called the customization that they have, or a Fluximization that they have. So they only are tracking those objects for change. So when it comes to detecting a change to live state, Argo CD has to have this additional logic that says like, oh, somebody's changing the number of replicas. Should somebody be allowed to do that, or should we override it? Whereas in Flux, you don't really have that because it's not actually tracking those objects. So depending on the level of tracking you want to do, Argo CD is going to be able to do more tracking. And so I only bring that up because it was interesting to hear somebody coming back, and we hadn't heard too many people considering Flux in recent years. So we had somebody come and ask us about that, and to understand just the model between the two.
Right.
It's interesting. But we don't, and we don't have to focus all of our conversation about Argo. Obviously I'll talk about Argo all day. But there were a lot of other things going on at KubeCon. I mentioned AI as a player. There's something a little funky there, I think, just from a business perspective. Cast AI was there. They closed $100 million in funding this year.
Wow.
And then they did another, I think, undisclosed raise just a little bit later. And then we had CoreWeave, who's another cloud native player doing cloud native data centers. And they just signed a $10 billion contract with Microsoft to provide AI data centers.
Okay.
And basically, like if you think about it, CoreWeave is a competitor to Azure, but Microsoft wanted more AI compute, more like GPU compute, and so they basically signed this $10 billion contract with someone who's essentially a competitor, and they are competing actively against. And did they do that because they just need to find a way to move faster to get the kind of GPU capacity? Or did they do that because they wanted to hedge their bets, and instead of spending $10 billion building data centers, maybe after like a bubble pops, they just rent it, and then they don't have to own it after maybe there's a correction and things change. So I don't know. That was interesting to have that kind of subtext of these things going on. And
yeah, Luther harps on this,
Yeah.
is asking, is there a new trend you noticed this year in Largo? You've hit on this obviously a little bit. Are there companies figuring out how to manage AI workloads in Kubernetes?
Yeah, okay, that's actually a great tie-in. Thank you, Luther. So the company that I think was doing maybe something, or maybe taking advantage of AI the most in the conference. Now, setting aside essentially VC dollars, magic money,
Sure.
you know, $10 billion for Microsoft, vCluster is probably the most interesting to me, because what they've done is they've basically leveraged Linux C groups to allow you to create multi-tenancy within Kubernetes. You can create virtual clusters, and you can actually do GPU sharing between these isolated virtual clusters. And they're able to do that via C groups at the kernel level of the host, so that they are, you know, perfectly isolated. And this is for people that have been doing GPUs on Kubernetes. You know that sharing GPUs across workloads and things like that is pretty tricky. So vCluster, to have a solution that basically allows you to take advantage of these GPUs and the dynamic workloads shifting between across virtual clusters, really powerful. Very, very cool. They were kind of starting to demo and talk. I think they announced it actually at London, but they were really demoing it quite heavily this time around. So very cool to see that as a great example. The other AI things that we noticed, a lot of companies are, you know, if you go back to KubeCon last year, a lot of people were like, we do AI now. And you were kind of like, okay, what do you do with AI? And they're like, we don't know, but we're definitely doing it. We're doing all of it. Everything we can think of, we're just shoving AI on everything. It was that AI slop kind of era.
Sure.
And now there's a lot more, there are a lot more interesting things going on in terms of like trying to do automated remediation using AI. You know, maybe open a pull request automatically to deal with an incident. So we saw it where, like, I think last year we saw everybody throwing everything against the wall, and now we're starting to see some of that stuff that's stuck start to like, okay, well, we're going to go and mature that. So there's some of those cool kind of use cases coming out, but at this point, I think it's more the infrastructure players like vCluster and like a CoreWeave who are really capitalizing, because they're selling shovels. You know, they're selling shovels and everybody else is mining for gold, but the shovel market is crushing it. The shovel market's great right now.
Yeah, vCluster is interesting because they've been around for a long time, and I guess they're just adjusting to the AI wave that everyone is seeing. So that's great to hear.
Well, this is good for them, because when they vCluster as an open source project has been incredibly popular. We use it extensively internally at Octopus and are quite happy with it. We've given a bunch of talks about this via CodeFresh brand, but they've kind of struggled in the first couple of years to find a way to monetize vCluster, to find a way to really make money off of it. So they have awesome technology. Now with this GPU sharing and the different things that they're doing there, I think they have a really great path. And so I think they've figured out the business and are in a really good state to be in.
That's great. Just as a reminder, if anyone has any questions here for Dan about what he saw in Atlanta around KubeCon, ArgoCon, all the cons, as they say, feel free to submit it to the chat. Just staying on that theme, obviously, of things that you saw. Did you have a chance to wander around the conference at all? Have a look at the booths? Was there anything that kind of caught your attention or surprised you? Like, oh, you guys are here. Or it's that Seinfeld sort of moment. It's like, did you say I didn't expect you to show? Or did you expect you'd show, you know, sort of thing. So not calling anyone out, obviously, but was there anyone that you're like, wow, it's great to see you here? Or was it like, wow, I'm really impressed by the difference from what I saw last year versus this year. You've mentioned vCluster, you've mentioned CoreWeave, you mentioned a bunch. Is there anything else?
There were a couple of companies that were absent that I know are still active and doing things in the Argo space. PipeKit didn't come this year, and I think it was just for them. They just felt like it was too expensive. But there were a couple of other ones that I know are active and growing companies that weren't here this year. But they're harder to keep track of, right? Because you have to look around and be like, of these 150 booths, which is the one that I didn't see that I expected to see. But one of the standouts, I think, from a change perspective, obviously the new stack was there, TechStrong TV was there, and we had interviews with those folks. They've been doing this for a long time, and they're veterans, covering the conference. But one of the booths that is showing a big change is Solo.io. Solo.io. I should call it the Octopus booth. Our booth was crushing it. We looked great. We had big Argo stuff. We had the demo theater going every 30 minutes. There was a crowd of people coming to see a demo. This is just the morning meeting, I think. So there's not a huge crowd of people. It's like they were just syncing up and showing.
Yeah, I call this design the recognizer. You know those floating things from Tron. That's what they're called. Yeah, it kind of looks like that. It's cool.
Recognizers?
Yeah, they're called the recognizers. So there you go.
This is the recognizer. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we had just great audience there, and Jenny and Joanna and I really crushed it. They did a great job. So yeah, all that was great. Oh yeah, here's my interview with TechStrong.
Oh, sorry.
There was Colin talking to some.
I love the look on your face here. This is like, what are you asking me here?
He looks like he's grilling me.
I know. Alan looks like he's like so are we going to change anything in the Argo space? What's going on? You're like,
he's asking me about the toxic waste that he's accusing me of having dumped in the river. And I look like I am responding in kind.
Yes, that's right. There's Colin having a chat, and then we had Bob talking to the new stack as well. So lots of cool photos here.
Breakfast this year. I think they've stopped doing it. I missed the new stack's pancake breakfast. I think that was.
Okay. This was a bit of a coming out party for the GitOps State of GitOps report. We saw it mentioned a lot throughout the conference.
Yes. So we released the State of GitOps report earlier this year, and so it takes a little bit of time for people to go through and read it. And so this is kind of the first conference where people could reference it. So we saw people referencing this a lot. If you haven't read this report, I'll give you a little spoiler alert for people that are listening. The biggest thing that you can do to improve your door metrics, bar none, compared to any tool, any practice, is to adopt and adhere closely to the GitOps principles. And it's not, I don't think, because those principles necessarily it's like, oh, if you there's something magical about Git that if you use it as a store of desired state, that suddenly everything is better. But it's as you adopt those principles, you'll realize how far away you've been from those principles. And so as you start doing it, you'll find all these little things that you need to fix in your process. So it becomes this sign of if you can accomplish this, it means there's a bunch of other things you had to accomplish along the way. And so we saw that huge correlation. And really cool from this report, the J curve, which is basically that when you ask people how closely they're adhering to GitOps in general, their impression, people that are low on GitOps adoption think they're high. And then people that actually following the principles, once they start following them a little bit, they actually their confidence goes down, and then it goes skyrocket. So what happens is basically people are like, they don't know what they don't know. They start adopting GitOps and they realize, oh geez, we had all these things that were missing, and then they start to improve their on everything across the board. So really cool. Go read the report. It's great.
Yeah.
But the call out that I was going to mention, to stick with that thought and going back to Luther's original question about a new trend and like new booth changes happening there. Solo.io. Solo.io started off focused on their glue mesh provider. Basically, think Istio service mesh provider. And there were in that service mesh, I'd say you could say the service mesh wars. There are a lot of players. I think Solo has emerged as the real leader here. And what they've done over the last 2 years with their service mesh, and their work with Envoy is that they've added a bunch of cool security features. They've capitalized with some cool open source projects that they've added. K-Agent is out there. Still, I think a little bit rough around the edges, but definitely exciting. K-Gateway as a gateway provider. And this has had kind of an AI big flavor to it. They've done a lot of AI work with this because within the context of a service mesh, you've got things like MCP servers, right? And there are all of these security challenges with working with MCPs. And so Solo.io has basically added in features that focus on basically providing security via the service mesh, via the API gateways, and filtering and blocking things there. So that was a way that they were able to capitalize on it and basically providing these AI endpoints that are more secure. And they've got, a very simple, they remind me a little bit of Cloudflare, right? Very, very simple kind of
last 24 hours notwithstanding.
Notwithstanding last 24 hours. But very, very simple kind of core idea. But then when you take that idea and run with it, it touches all these different areas and becomes super powerful. So I think they're one that if you're interested in service meshes and the problems that they solve, Solo.io is the one that I would call out as being the most interesting and has grown a ton. I remember when they were the startup booth, they had like 3 people in the company and talking to their team. And then now they've got one of the biggest booths at the show. So they were showing up big.
That's awesome. I got another question here from Luther. You should just basically co-host with us. He's asking the question, was there a lot of buzz about retiring the Nginx ingress? Any predictions on how this migration will evolve over the next few months?
I didn't really hear too much about trying to retire Nginx ingress. It's so popular. It's been around for so long. So many people know how to use it. I mean, I was configuring Nginx on my first VMs, a long time ago. And so a lot of people have experience with it, but definitely seeing that not Nginx, the Envoy has been pretty steadily taking over as being more efficient, more quick, and more resilient. So I definitely do see a lot of shift towards Envoy, but I didn't hear anything specifically about like, hey guys, Nginx is over, can't believe you're still using Nginx, grandpa. Like I didn't hear.
Oh, come on. Nginx was awesome when it first was, many moons ago.
Hey, it's still awesome. I mean, it's still running. It's probably still running,
good chunk of the
internet. So
yes, that's right. That's right.
So yeah, there was a lot of that going on. So yeah, that's a good question though.
Yeah. Any other highlights you want to mention around KubeCon? Obviously, you're busy and you didn't have a chance to see everything, but is there any other things that you took note of while you were there?
Yeah, and I can definitely dip into a lot of Argo specific conversations that I've had, right?
Okay.
I did talk to people about like, hey, what did you think was interesting? And so trying to get a sense of where different things are happening. There's a new feature for Kubernetes that they were showing off at the keynote that is basically an automated rollback feature. And I haven't dug into it at all. I saw the announcement, basically the headline, and I thought this is probably going to fight with Argo CD and break if you try to use it. and I'm not sure I'm not sure how much it's actually adding to the equation, but it was a new feature that a few people were talking about. We're on Kubernetes 1.36 now, and it's cool to see that we're still got some cool new features coming out, things that people are building. So I got to look into it and see exactly how this automated rollback is going to work, but I won't do it live right now.
Nice. Looking ahead, obviously, to KubeCon Europe, I'd assume we'll be there. Anything that you're looking forward to with the next iteration of KubeCon, etc.?
Okay, here's the hardest thing about KubeCon Europe. The CFP's closed before KubeCon North America happened. First time that's ever been the way that it worked, but just because of the scheduling and the timing, those were closed. Those CFPs were closed before we even started KubeCon
Right.
North America. So
Wow.
if you have an idea for a talk and you want to get it out there, you've got to plan ahead. You've got to
Yes.
start putting in those CFPs early. This is going to be in March. Okay.
Yes.
So we're 4 months, 5 months away. I mean, I'm curious if we can keep doing it that way, because you want people to be able to come in and talk about some pretty cutting edge stuff. If you have to have an idea for a talk and put it out 6 months in advance, you're going to be, maybe your talk is almost going to be a little bit behind. So I don't know if we're going to be able to change that, but I'm continuing to plan ArgoCon EU, which is going to be in Amsterdam. And I think it'll be a great event. So if you have a chance to join us, come hang out, talk with us. I'd love to hear from you if you ended up having to take a road trip. Now, have you heard of the Coop train in Europe?
Tell me more.
Okay, so there is, I don't know who's organizing it. There is a, because they did it last year, but they're basically doing a train that is going to go to Amsterdam. It's going to stop. Oh, did you find it already? Wow, you're quick. So the Coop train is, if you want to travel by train to KubeCon Amsterdam, you can join at any of these cities. And there's basically going to be a rolling KubeCon party happening on this train as it goes from, I think there's going to be one from Zurich and then one from
Zurich, Paris.
Zurich
and Paris look like, and there's stops along the way. It starts in Zurich, it looks like, and then stops in Paris, and then on its way to Amsterdam. You can only do this in Europe, you know? Like, if we tried this in Australia or the States, we wouldn't get there for a week, you know?
No, the Australian one would be like trucks, and it would be a Mad Max. There'd be flamethrowers. I saw that dude with the guitar that shoots flames. Different vibe.
Oh, he's doing the keynote address that's right. He's doing the keynote address at Europe. So there you go. So
yeah, so this will be more wine and cheese than petrol and flamethrowers.
And flames. Yeah, perfect.
And,
awesome.
And the EU one. Now, Luther's bringing up in the chat. Luther, buddy, just get a camera on.
I know. Just jump on.
He brought up next KubeCon. He's very sad. It was going to be in LA. They moved it to Salt Lake City. LA.
It's good for you.
It's great for me. I'm so happy. I love LA. LA is great. There's great food in LA, but the situation was basically that there was a lot of construction going on around the convention center, and the convention center people wanted to have KubeCon happen, but looking at it, it was going to be kind of a nightmare for all of the attendees to get around this construction and deal with it. And so Salt Lake was already all set up, and they were like, you know what, we'll just plug it in, make it happen. So Salt Lake City next year is going to be the thing. And then I think we're going back to Barcelona for the following one. So we don't have to get too far into the future, but yeah, a lot of that stuff is going to be happening. So Kube Train, get on that Kube Train hype.
Nice.
Could be a lot of fun and a great way to meet people. Every KubeCon, you know, we talked about this before the KubeCon.
Yes.
Every KubeCon, the best part of the conference is always the hallway track.
Sure. Yeah.
It's always the conversations you have with people outside of the presentations. So Kube Train's basically a way to extend that. Great. Love it.
So if you want to find out more, you go to tickets.kubetrain.io. This sounds like a big nightmare for me because this is a young person thing. And just to wrap things up, it wouldn't be remiss if, you know, obviously we didn't mention SHIP. We've got SHIP coming up on December 9th and 10th. The reason why I mentioned this is because we've just published our schedule. We've got some sessions there from folks like Bob, from Liam, from others. Costas is going to be doing a session on scaling Argo CD for the enterprise. You may want to check this out. You can find out more by visiting our website, octopus.com/ship. This is a two-day all virtual event. I mean, what are you going to be doing in December? It's snowing outside. You got nothing better to do. Everyone's on holidays. Why not come and learn a little bit about Argo and Kubernetes and Octopus and CodeFresh, etc. Visit us at octopus.com/ship to register. Be fun. It'll be prizes. And it'll be a great old time. Anyways, that is the wrap up for KubeCon, ArgoCon, whatever, all the cons, 2025 in North America. Dan, thank you very much for giving us all your insights And any parting words for folks who are interested in KubeCon, have never been maybe to KubeCon, put together a proposal to your manager to get going over there. Maybe jump on the Kube
absolutely.
train.
If you're
Don't mention the Kube
interested
train.
If you're interested in presenting, feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to chat. And I oftentimes will find people from the community that are interested in partnering with like an Argo maintainer to give a talk, and love doing that. And so feel free to reach out. And in addition to Shipped, don't forget, we're going to be at AWS reInvent like just a few days before. So if you're in the US and you're going to AWS reInvent, come say hi. I'll be there Tuesday and Wednesday, and love to chat anything Argo, CD. I really love when people come and bring me problems. They're like, here's the problem we're having, here's what we're facing, and I love getting into that. So we did a ton of that at KubeCon, and would love to do it again at reInvent. So hopefully we'll see you all there.
Yeah, if you don't know where we are, just look for the big recognizer sort of display we got. This is the Tron display. So there you go. Anyways, all right. Thank you very much, Dan. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and attention joining us here today. We will see you on the next one. Hopefully, we'll see you at AWS reInvent, or if not, at KubeCon Europe, or all KubeCons in the future. Anyways, on behalf of Dan and myself, thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.